Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 69. He's Dave Bryan, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, it took 32 years and about an hour and a half, but Donnie Shell is a Hall of Famer, and aside from Shell and the Shell family, there's probably no one happier about that news than you, Dave Bryan.
Oh, yes, certainly. Look, much respect and congratulations to him for sure, and been kind of a small labor of love of mine and kind of thorn in my side, if you will, for him not being in. And I kind of cheated and had a good idea or felt pretty good about him getting in, and had, of course, took the time to write out the post last night and have it ready to go this morning. It felt so good to push that publish button, and then about 35 minutes later, after they had shown the phone call and had him on, just kind of this real kind of wave of relief kind of came over me for some reason there. But look, it's one thing to be a fan of a team and then, to advocate a certain player like this to get in the Hall of Fame after all these years, but it was more than just that. I mean, it was a very deserving, something that needed to be done with Donnie Shell. It's just funny how the sands of time really have run on and how he kind of got left in the background there. I think 2002 was the last time he was actually a finalist, and boy, you really started to think way back then, how many more opportunities as this thing progresses, will Donnie Shell have the opportunity? And I really think that, if he hadn't gotten in as part of this Centennial slate process and all, I kind of wonder if he would have ever got in. And hats off to them for doing this Centennial slate thing. Obviously, 100 years of the NFL, they're celebrating that and all. I would, I don't want to see them change anything really for the most part with the process of what they do with the Hall of Fame, because other than maybe cycle out some of those voters that are on the panel there, but I think every 25 years or so, they need to think of doing, maybe not have something as large as say this Centennial Class is or whatnot, but man, just have a kind of catch your breath, catch up moment, if you will, say every 25 years, because it's so easy for these guys to kind of get left behind as the decades roll in from one into the next one there. Look, I hate the rock and roll. I'm a huge rock and roll guy, and I absolutely hate the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because of the way they do things. It just seems like, everybody and their brother gets in, and then you have certain bands like Kiss that have to wait forever to get in. It kind of demeans that, the whole process, if you will. So, yeah, I mean, it's the Hall of Fame. It's the Hall of Exceptional, the Hall of Great. It's not the Hall of Very Good. But if there's one person I think that got left behind throughout this whole process, it was indeed Donnie Shell, and it's just so good to finally see him, recognized today.
It is. I echo everything that you said, and David Baker, the president of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, said that this year was important because there was such a backlog of players from over the decades, especially the years prior to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the first class in, I think, 68, and obviously NFL began way before 68, so it was important to get some of those names in. To revisit Donnie Shell's career, undrafted free agent out of South Carolina State in 74, signed with the Steelers, spent his entire career in Pittsburgh from 74 to 87, 162 career starts, 51 career interceptions, obviously part of the Steel Curtain, 4-time Super Bowl winner, one of the last of the Steel Curtain, again playing through 87. So, yeah, well-deserved. They had Shell on Good Morning Football after his induction or election was announced in the Hall of Fame, so that was a really cool interview if you haven't checked that out. So, yeah, I agree. And so you got Bill Cowher, you got Donnie Shell, and I think Troy is a lock to join him. Hopefully Alan Faneca can as well. So you may end up in a couple weeks here getting 4 Hall of Famers of the Steelers from one class, which is really special.
Yeah, and the only thing I guess now is when is the actual Centennial Slate ceremony. I understand because look, it takes all of that Saturday to get just 7 guys inducted to have their speeches and all like that. But man, I kind of hope they kind of run it all together there. And I've yet to see exactly when the celebration of the Centennial Class is going to take place. I don't think it's going to, I think they'll be recognized during the it looks like countdown to the NFL Centennial Celebration sometime in September. There,
yeah, I believe it's September 17th is when they're going to hold that ceremony. David Baker said about if they're going to have some of them honored during the normal ceremony, and then some of them, the rest will be honored in that September 17th celebration in Canton, Ohio.
And look, not going to complain about any of this. After just praising what they're doing here and all like that. But I hope they kind of keep this kind of associated and that this doesn't become sort of an asterisk thing, alongside, because these guys are all deserving of being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So, look, I understand you can't do it all in that one Saturday because that would make for a long, long day to have everybody get up there and give their speeches and all. But for let's say a Steeler fan goes to Canton this year to see to see hopefully Troy Polamalu and Alan Faneca be inducted into Pro Football Hall of Fame there. It'd be nice if they don't have to make 2 separate trips, to also experience what Cowher and Donnie Shell as well. So look, I know beggars can't be choosy when you get to this point here, but I guess my biggest fear at this point now is it becoming more of an asterisk type thing that with these Centennial Slate class members there. But we'll let the process play out and just observe it and respect it just the same.
Agreed. And just to honor all those that were a part of the Centennial Class, I want to read off the names here quickly of all the names announced today. Bill Cowher, Jimmy Johnson, Steve Sable, Paul Tagliabue, George Young, Harold Carmichael, Jim Covert, who's, by the way, Washington, PA native, Bobby Dillon, Cliff Harris, Winston Hill, Alex Karras, again, Donnie Shell, Duke Slater, Max Beatty, and Ed Sprinkle. So hats off to all of them. I was surprised no Drew Pearson. I thought Roger Craig was going to get in, but I still think this is an awesome class overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, you're right. Pearson and Roger Craig, man, when you go through that list of 20, just the seniors alone, hard to leave any of those guys off. And then especially some of the coaches as well, too, that were on that list. I got, and I'll say it again. I said it on the show the other day. I was a little bit surprised Bill Cowher was one of the 2 coaches. Chosen. I'm obviously glad he was, but a little bit surprised by that overall. But they got it right with Donnie Shell. I'll tell you that.
They did, and then my last thought just on this is I think this kind of completes the 74 rookie class for Pittsburgh. You have 5 Hall of Famers from that class, and I don't know if any team has ever done that before. I think almost inarguably at this point with Shell now getting the nod in the Canton, this is the greatest rookie class, I should say, because Shell was an undrafted player, but the greatest rookie class in football history. Of Swan in the first round, Lambert in the second round, Stallworth in the fourth, Webby in the fifth, and now Shell as a UDFA. I think that's unmatched by any other rookie class in football history.
Yeah, well, boy, the odds of something like that happening never again.
Astronomical.
And that just goes to show you how a guy like Bill Nunn now, that I think people like you, myself, and members of the media and all like that in Pittsburgh, that's the next stage of this thing. Once again, you get a guy like Gil Brandt in, what was it, last year and all, and there was no better time than this year, in my opinion, with the 100-year celebration of the NFL to put in a guy like Bill Nunn as a contributor. So they're deep down inside of me, though, I feel very comfortable that at some point in probably the very near future that Bill Nunn will get in. I feel, I obviously feel a lot more optimistic about that than I did, Donnie Shell, over the last couple of years here. So, at least they got it right. And, the cream always rises to the top, I think. So I think eventually they'll get it right with Bill Nunn. We'll just have to see how long it takes. And then look, L.C. Greenwood as well, too, is another guy from that 70s team that you can make a strong argument belongs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame as well.
I sure hope they get in and are certainly deserving of it. But if it didn't happen this year, I know that path's going to be really tough going forward. By the way, Dave, since you mentioned the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, their inductees were announced today too. I don't know if you have any reaction to that. Pat Benatar did not get in, which is a shock to me.
Yeah, a little bit of a shock to me. Look, I look at it now just so I can bitch about it. I lost a lot of respect for the Pro Football. For the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Many, probably before you were born. I look at it, and if it's an artist that I really like, I'll tune into HBO to actually see the presentation and all. But I in no way, shape, or form set my watch by it or anything.
Yeah, I don't think most people do at this point. But anyway, to get back to football, not a whole lot for us to talk about today. Got the Senior Bowl coming up again. Me and Daniel Valente will be flying out this weekend to go cover it down in Mobile, Alabama. You had an article yesterday, though, Dave, about how it appears there will not be any Steelers coaching changes. I think Mike Tomlin was down in for the Wild game, I think the Wild Penguins game, and Danny Smith was with him, and that kind of probably tells you that Danny Smith isn't going anywhere, and certainly no firings appear to be happening at this point. So maybe they add somebody at some moment in this process, offseason process, but it does not seem like anyone's going to be leaving the coaching staff this offseason.
No, not right now at this point. It doesn't. That's for sure. That kind of tickled me yesterday to see the report about Danny Smith and Mike Tomlin showing up at the Wild morning skate session and all like that. And Danny Smith obviously goes back several years with their head coach from the time that the two spent there in Washington and all like that. And boy, you would think at this stage in the process now with look, we got the East-West Shrine game on tap for this weekend, and then that of course going to be followed up by the Senior Bowl week after that. You would think that if there's going to be any changes or additions or what have you to the coaching staff, they're going to be announced, by now or within the next probably 24 to 48 hours, one would think. Now I know there's a report, maybe I think it's more of a rumor right now about maybe Matt Canada being added as an offensive assistant quarterback coach. I as far as I can tell, there's no teeth to that rumor yet. I'm not saying it won't happen, but other than probably officially naming maybe a quarterback's coach at this point, man, it's hard to see them making any changes on the staff right now, right?
Well, it's that and the receiver coach situation, which I still don't know what their decision is on that. If they're going to just make Sherman the full-time coach, should he want that? I'm not sure what his desire is, or Blaine Stewart, or add somebody from the outside, but it doesn't feel like anyone's going to be departing in any sort of firing or quote-unquote mutual parting of the way. Sounds like James Daniel, the tight ends coach, is going to be back for at least another year. Keith Butler, whose contract was expired, I assume they've done a new deal. He's going to return. It does sound like Danny Smith will be back as a special teams coordinator. So no major changes. There may be someone that gets added along the way, like I said, but certainly nothing that's going to be super noteworthy this offseason.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't look like. Look, things can change in a hurry. But I would feel more comfortable if we got to this weekend, and don't hear anything. I think that's kind of the draw the line in the sand moment there once you get into these all-star games at this point. Because look, you got to you have to get somebody hired. You would probably want to have them with you, taken to some of these all-star games at the very latest by the time the Senior Bowl week rolls around. And look, the game is obviously a week from week from Saturday, but the whole week transpires.
Yeah, it starts Monday.
Right, way before that. So it's pretty much now or never when it comes to any potential changes on the staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, longer there's no news, the greater the odds that things remain status quo. By the way,
I saw that ad this morning. Did you see that ad on? Maybe it didn't run in your region. About you send a picture in and it gets kind of etched in glass. Did you catch that ad on the NFL?
I think I was brushing my teeth, and I heard it in the background somewhere.
Okay, it looked pretty neat, and for it's the only time I've seen the ad, but it did catch my eye, and I thought, boy, that'd be cool if you had a certain picture that you wanted, wanted put, etched and framed in glass. Like, I forget exactly how it was. I need to find that and on the DVR and go back and look at the website and all. But isn't your birthday coming up pretty soon? Within 365 days?
It's in May, so a little ways to go. Are you going to buy me that? Are you going to be QVC shopping, Dave, where you're buying stuff?
No. My wife's got all that under control.
I know,
That the HSN, boy, I got to keep working just so I can afford that. But here's what I was going to do. That bubblegum, that bubblegum chewing picture of Danny Smith. It every time I look at that picture, I think of you for some reason. So I was going to think about maybe getting that picture and getting that thing done, however that in glass, and giving it to you for your birthday. So don't be surprised, because that is all you.
Yeah, that'll be a prized possession. # Danny Smith forever. So I bought last year during the combine, because they replay the same ads over and over again. I just got hypnotized, but I bought one of those electric razors, and it totally sucked. It was a waste of money. So don't fall into my trap of buying things you see on NFL Network, because the commercial keeps playing. But anyway,
how much signed stuff from Chidi Awamo do you have?
What do I have signed? I got 3 things of football. I think 3. I got a football, I got a picture, and then a jersey that I brought to training camp and had him sign. The 2 things I bought. So those are my Chidi Awoma autograph prize.
Do you have that jersey framed or no?
I don't have it framed. I need to get it framed. It's hanging up neatly in my closet.
Man, you need to get that thing done. You need to get that thing done right.
I'm bad with my Steelers memorabilia stuff, but I got some hats and stuff that are in plastic so they don't get dirty. But anyway, what I was going to say was, we're talking about the coaching staff, and I think one guy that flies under the radar that deserves a ton of credit is Carl Dunbar, for the things he's done the last 2 years, not only with the defensive line, obviously, Cam Hayward's remained elite, was elite before Dunbar got there, but Stephon Tua taking his game to new heights before getting hurt in 2019. Tyson Alulu having a great season. Javon Hargrave's career arc overall has been really impressive the last 2 years, but also we know that Dunbar works primarily, or at least often, with the outside linebackers, because they basically work as de facto defensive ends in the Steelers sub-package scheme. And so the maturation of TJ Watt, the breakout year for Bud Dupree, I just want to tip my hat to Carl Dunbar, because I think he's been a really valuable piece to developing a lot of this talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, just look at what all has transpired on that defensive line the last few years here. A solid addition with him taking over for John Mitchell and all like that, and already seeing some good things, some early signs out of Bugs. From his rookie season, and also, absolutely, he's been a fine addition to that coaching staff.
All right, Dave. So that's it on the coaching staff changes, or lack of changes. If anything does change with that, we'll let you know. Where do you want to go now? We don't have a whole lot to talk about today. You did have a contextualization, I think the first of draft season, on LSU tight end Thad Moss, the son of Randy Moss, who kind of broke out in the national championship game where LSU goes on to beat Clemson, had a really strong game, caught a lot of attention, myself included. You broke him down, though, in depth as only you can do. What did you kind of learn about Thad Moss?
Yeah, look, this is a guy that I obviously just knew very, very, very little about heading into, let's say, the final couple of weeks of the college football season. Obviously, with the last name, I had heard of him. Of course, with him being the son of Randy Moss. I remember hearing back from the whole transfer thing, from him getting to where he was to LSU and all like that. But I really hadn't sat and watched his tape, or at least a large selection. I've seen a couple of highlights here and there. Well, with all the hoopla coming out of the national champ, it seems like every year once we hit the national championship game, Twitter lights up. With a large selection of the fan base hot on one or two players, and it really seems like everybody's, or not everybody, but quite a few people are now high on Thaddeus Moss, potentially going to the Steelers in the second round, obviously with the perceived need at tight end and all like that. So, I thought, look, this kid hasn't even decided whether or not he's going to declare or not. Now might be the perfect time, while the fire's hot, assuming assuming he does, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with him in the next couple of days? But anyway, I said, look, I know there's that large selection of TV tape out there on him already. Let's go look and contextualize all of his targets from last season, which ended up being, I think, what I read there, 55 or 50, I think 55 total targets that he had, at least that I know of, at least what the game books and all say on that. So I started piecing that thing together, put all the pertinent information in there, of course, down, distance, line of scrimmage, passing distance, something that really proves that you had to watch every play along the way. Yards after catch, section of the field. And by the way, in case, and I didn't put this in the contextualization post, whenever you see that, like we have it broken down maybe into area of the field, and there'll be a number 1 through 5. Envision the field going, looking down on top of the field and working from left to right. The area number 1 would be, of course, from the sideline to outside, where the outside the numbers in. Now, of course, that's going to be a little bit different on an NFL field versus where, I think on a college field is. But that would be section number 1. Section number 2 would then be from the start of the numbers until the start of the midfield, hash mark on that side there. That would be section number 2. Section number 3 would, of course, be between the hash marks, middle of the field, and then, of course, 4 and 5 would be, the flip of the left side of the field there. So that gives everybody the thing that we try to do and have tried to do over the years here, especially when it comes to our regular Steelers charting, is be able to look at the data in one line of an Excel spreadsheet and be able to exactly visualize what happened on that play, right? And that's kind of the stuff that we've tried to do with that. Trying to, for the most part, try to do a lot of the same things when it comes to this contextualization stuff as well too. Well, anyway, getting on into the actual contextualization of that. Look, this guy had a high catch percentage. When you figure he caught 47 passes out of 55 total targets. That's 80. I'm losing my place here. I think it's 85.5% percent catch rate, which is absolutely tremendous. However, 47 passes for 570 yards and 4 touchdowns, of which 2 of those touchdowns obviously came in the national championship game against Clemson. His long reception of the season was 62 yards and was also good for a touchdown. That was, of course, happened against Oklahoma a few weeks ago, and that, of course, was a busted coverage. We got to call it what it was. It was a busted coverage on that play. In total, Moss was targeted 55 times. We went over the catch percentage there on that. When you start breaking down kind of the going inside the metrics of his targets, and this is where I became kind of, it's not hard to watch all these things and start thinking, man, this isn't what I kind of thought I was going to see, when it comes to a player such as him. But overall, when you look at the metrics tied to it, and let me refine my place here. I just lost here. His average catch distance from the original line of scrimmage was just 6.5 yards. I found that to be a lot less than what I went into this thing expecting to find. His average targeted distance on 54. I couldn't find one damn target. It was his first damn target of the season against Georgia Southern. That game, whoever puts that thing on, it must have got a late start or something on the network or whatnot, because it picks up, I think, at like the 10-minute mark of the first quarter of that game. So I can't find. That's the only target of his I couldn't find there. But I did have, of course, the 54 of the other 55. His average targeted distance past the line of scrimmage was about mildly disappointing 7.24 yards on 54 of the targets. I went ahead and I mentioned the average catch distance was 6.5 yards. And additionally, only 8 of his contextualized receptions that I have were caught 10 or more yards past the line of scrimmage. Now, while he did have 254 254 yards after the catch, which is, 254 out of, I think, 570. Of course, I don't have one of his catches to know the yak on that. But, you're looking at roughly, almost 50% of his yards came after the catch. It's important to remember that 65 of those yards, no, it's less than that. Where is it here? What was the yak on that long catch against? 65 of those yards after the catch came on two different receptions. One, of course, being against Oklahoma, and the other one was on. I think he had 25 yards after the catch on another one in another game there. So his yards gained after the catch this past season was just 4.76 yards. I kind of expected a little bit higher number than that. Surprisingly, 32 of Moss's 46 contextualized receptions I did from this past season came 5 or less yards past the original line of scrimmage there. So that would help explain his high catch percentage, because not down the field very far, receiving a lot of those catches. He does a lot of work sitting down in zone in soft areas, a lot of work kind of coming across the middle of the field, kind of on underneath crossers. You'll see a lot of that. What you don't see a lot of on him is running up the seams or running down the middle of the field and going vertical and catching vertical. His best catch of the season last year, in my opinion, or at least one of the top 1 or 3 of them, was that sideline catch that he made down there about the 1 yard line against Alabama there. That was a very exceptional catch on his part. The thing that I come away with him after watching all this, and look, I haven't looked at all of his blocking or anything. This is just was all contextualized past targets of his. He's just not that explosive of a player overall. I do like his catch radius. I think he's listed at 6'3", 240 something. He looks and plays a little bit bigger than that as a receiver, in my opinion. However, you don't see him going vertical a lot, stretching the field that way. And, to call him a guaranteed first or second round player right now at this point, based on what I've seen of his, obviously I've not looked, like I said, I've not looked at his complete route running or his blocking or anything along those lines. And I'll tell you right now, he wasn't used a lot as in a line of scrimmage guy or as a traditional blocking tight end anyway. I came away from this study thinking, man, I just can't be as high on this guy as most Steeler fans already seem to be coming out of a national championship game there. I view him more as maybe a 3rd or 4th round tight end at this point. And really, from what I've seen already, Alex, with him, I would suggest that he stay in school another year and try to become a little bit more well-rounded to increase his draft stock.
Yeah, I mean, that's all fair. I mean, and obviously, this is a guy that hasn't even declared yet, so it may all become moot. Friday's the deadline, and that's coming up pretty quick. I think the stats are valuable. I'm not surprised that some of his yards per, completion were a little bit lower because of that high completion percentage. Probably does tell you that when you're catching 85% of your targets, you're probably doing that closer to the line of scrimmage than a lot of plays downfield. The size might worry me a little bit because, and I think you pointed this out, Dave, the Steelers generally like some bigger tight ends than maybe a 6'3", probably more like 6'2.5", 240-pound type guy. But I know it's early in the process, and I don't know if you could compare him to other tight ends that you've watched. I mean, you've kind of bounced around trying to prep with guys like I have. I don't know if you like X guy, Pinckney or Hopkins or whoever more than Moss based on your initial kind of research, if you have any sort of feeling or ranking on that.
Yeah, I don't have a good comp or anything on that yet. Just pretty much was just getting into, just getting into actually contextualizing what he was as a receiver, first and foremost there. I haven't really thought about maybe a potential comp. But
well, do you like him? Is there any tight ends you've watched where you say, I like Moss more than this tight end in this draft class, or I like this other tight end more than I like Thad Moss, or do you have any sort of idea on that?
Not enough. I didn't come away very impressed, as you can probably tell. I came away more kind of disappointed of thinking I was going to find something else.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. There's always a hype that builds up with every fan base for a guy, and we can't get fixated on just one name and be locked on him throughout this entire process.
Right, absolutely, and that's obviously one thing you and I both do. But on the flip side, I hate to make overarching decisions with him not having enough guys to measure him up against yet.
Sure.
In this draft class, I will tell you this right now at this point though. I'm feeling a little bit underwhelmed overall when it comes to from what I've seen already out of this tight end draft class. Now, I still want to look at the kid out of Dayton and all. Got a couple of games downloaded on him. I'd like to get some all 22 versus some, because some of these smaller schools, their TV, their TV tape, if you will, on some of these games is like, not very good.
It's a low production value.
Low production, not a lot of zooms. It's really hard to see stuff, from Dayton, school, stuff.
As someone who filmed D2 Clarion football, I can attest to that.
Well, there you go. I've already reached out to Dayton, and I haven't heard back from them. Trying to get a hold of some of their all 22 stuff. Hopefully, at some point, we'll get a hold of 2 or 3 games on them. But just in general, and I know you've looked at we'll probably switch gears here now and talk a little bit about the Purdue. I do have keyed up. Maybe if and I'm hoping to get to it after getting this podcast put together and up on the website and all, is the Missouri tight end, doing a contextualization on him as much as what's out there. And I don't think I'm going to be able to find all of his targets there, but I'm going to be able to have most of them there. So maybe have another contextualization up on Albert. I'm just going to call him Albert O. How's that?
Yeah, I think that's how most people are, and I'll join on that. And well, I'll say for Troutman, the Dayton kid, that's why the Senior Bowl is so important, for those small school guys to show if they can or can't rise to the level of competition. Javon Hargrave's an obvious and easy comparison to make, an FCS kid that dominated down there. But you didn't know, was that just the product of the lack of competition, or was this guy for real? He gets to the Senior Bowl as an injury call-up, dominates the one-day practice, has a good game. You realize, okay, this guy is legit. I think about Ali Marpet from Division III Hobart. I think one of the first D3 players to ever attend the Senior Bowl, or at least one of the first in a long time, that had a really good week down there, and then that kind of propelled him into being a pretty high draft pick by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's going to be a valuable week for all those guys. Anyone who's going to be competing at Mobile has a chance to really show some good tape and start ascending and improving your draft stock, but especially for those small school guys like Adam Troutman, to work in Mobile, to be on that level playing field, to play against Power 5 guys, that's invaluable.
Now, look, the other night during the game, what are you seeing on tape when it comes to the Moss kid that I might be seeing? Because I think at one point, even on Twitter, you said, Moss is a guy that you think will look good in the Steelers uniform.
Well, I honestly, I was being a little reactionary to that, I'll be honest. I'm just based off the game itself. I haven't dived into
Hold on, let me make sure I got that recorded here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll play that one back. Out of context, I'm sure, for other players whenever I get stuff
wrong. Wait, you got a little, say that again. Hold on a minute. Say that again a little bit more slower for me.
Right. Dave Bryan wearing a wire over there. Because again, I've not watched all the snaps. I'm really just going off of that game. Again, this guy is not even declared yet. He may return to school, may take your advice and say, I want to come back to LSU for another season. So I haven't even gotten to that level yet. But I just thought it was impressive. His football IQ, making some tough catches, just making big plays in those big moments, I thought was impressive. So I just thought it looked good based on that alone. But that's why these things as you do are really valuable, because they probably provide a greater scope to who this kid is. Again, a kid that has yet to even declare formally for the draft.
Right, and look, I'm just kidding you. I mean, because it's easy. It is very easy to get caught up in a game. Especially early on in the process when it comes to stuff like this. So, I tell you what, you putting that out there made me go, well, I'm gonna go dive into this kid. I think.
I mean, he did look good in the game.
Look,
he had a great game against Clemson.
Right, even though the yardage wasn't there, 5 catches, 30-something yards, a couple of big catches.
He had the one
game.
Called back, right? Like a 40-yarder, I think, that got negated by penalty.
Sure, and yeah, you have to take all that into consideration there for sure. And overall, yeah, he did have what a time to shine. against top team in the nation there in Clemson, and the effort alone on that one touchdown of his, and you're not gonna find any type of I mean, look, he obviously had the effort after the catch, but I really think that goes straight to the top of his highlight reel, breaking a tackle and getting in the end zone on that one catch there, but do you see that kind of stuff consistently? And, we know how the Steelers are, too, not only when it comes to, at least unless something changes, we know how they like the all-around kind of tight ends. And once again, I have not even scraped, going through game by game to really look and see what he is or isn't as a blocker. I can tell you just from the feel of it that I don't think we're going to find a lot of it.
But I will say, just in terms of the baseline levels of what the Steelers like with early draft picks, they love Power 5, they love underclassmen, they love football bloodlines, and he checks all those boxes in a big way.
Sure he does. Absolutely does. Now, is he going to mark the spark box? I don't know. I don't get a sense that he's going to come off overly sparky, if you know what I mean. Obviously, if he comes out, he'll be at the combine. We know that for sure there. But just from a target standpoint and that alone, I came away very disappointed. I came away thinking to myself, man, there's no way in hell this guy goes first round, and really, really kind of doubting at this point with not having anything really to measure him up against overall as a class and at his position as well too. Sure. Thinking, man, I wonder if he's going to go in, even in the second round at this point. That's why I started to think, I know they're going to lose Joe Burrow. They're probably going to lose a couple other members from that team as well too.
Joe Brady is gone.
He's gone to Carolina and all as well too. It really makes you wonder. He might not have the same kind of amount of teammates to play with there and that kind of thing there, but I really think he could stand to increase his draft stock even if he goes back there. Now, some will say, man, his stock is already high enough as it is. I disagree. I think he could become a lot more well-rounded. Heck, he wasn't even on I don't even think he was on the Mackey watch list or semi-finalist or whatever, because those are, when it comes to tight ends, I run right to that list after the season's over. I don't pay a bit of damn attention to it during the college football season, but as soon as we get in this stage, and as much as how much I like tight ends and stuff like that, I run straight to that because I want to see who was in the running for the Mackey Award, and then start breaking it down, going backwards from there, because at least that lets you know that, hey, these guys were considered to potentially be the top tight ends during the recently concluded college football season and all like that. So, so I guess now that was a long-winded way of saying I was a little bit disappointed with not saying that Moss can't become a good professional or anything like that. I just think where the hype was coming out of the national championship game to what I saw on tape, especially being the first guy. I think last year my first guy I broke down was the Alabama kid, right? The Alabama linebacker, the first guy that I really, really took a deep dive into. I think I might have
Mac Wilson?
Mac Wilson there. And at the time he was viewed as, boy, that's going to be the top line. About this time last year, Mac Wilson's the cream of the crop of the off-the-ball linebacker group, right?
Right, and he goes 5th round.
Right, then we see how that ultimately works out. It just goes to show you, man, you got to watch the tape, right? You just got to decide for yourself. Even from what we just talked about today with Moss, and that's why I try to put the contextualizations too and link them the way I do and link as many plays. I want people that read the site to not take my word for it. I want them to be able to eat, because look, not everybody has the time that you and I do, right? To sit around and watch film all day. If you get that opportunity, do it.
Amen.
But I like to link all those plays because I want somebody to be able to come straight to Steelers Depot real quick, be able to, they might not be able to click on all 55 targets, but maybe they'll be able to click on 20 of them, right? And then they should be able to at least come away from those 20 plays there thinking, okay, I got a pretty good idea of what this kid is and what this kid isn't, kind of thing there. So with that, I know you've looked a little bit deeper into the Purdue kid. I've watched about 20 or 30 plays. I've got moderate opinion on him, but I want to hear what you have to say about him.
Yeah, I'm only 2 games in. I'm just trying to do some last minute Senior Bowl prep work to kind of bounce around to some guys to get me ready for Mobile. But I was impressed with him. I think just so far I like him more than Pinckney. Pinckney I like him probably more than any tight end I've watched so far, which has only been a handful. But I just think in terms of being an athlete and having burst and separation at the top of your route with a yak ability, I think he kind of hits all those things with a solid pair of hands who can adjust outside his frame. I think he kind of hits some of those really important levels as a receiver. As a blocker, he's not that great, but there's some effort. He did do some inline work, and again, you're not going to find probably too many great blockers at the college level, and if you do, they're probably blocking only types who aren't going to offer you much as a receiver. So I think he's got an overall skill set that you can improve upon. My whole mentality is as long as there's effort there and you have some experience in a 3-point stance, I can work with that. I can take a good receiver and help him with his blocking. It's harder to take a good blocker and help turn him into a good receiver because there's athletic limitations that you just can't coach, you just can't teach, and it's going to be a ceiling that always presents itself. So just 2 games in, doing some stuff late last night, but I was kind of impressed by Bryson Hopkins. I know that Tom Mead has a full report on him, which you guys can check out on Steelers Depot, but he's caught my eye. He'll be down there at the Senior Bowl. I'm really excited to watch him.
What, team co-captain at Purdue? That'll mean a little bit. He was named the John Mackey tight end of the week after catching 6 passes for 84 yards and a touchdown at Nevada on August 30th. Had 3 receptions for 41 yards and two. What did he do explosive play wise? Do you know?
For the entire season?
Yeah.
I don't have that broken down. I just 2 games I got on him. He had at least one explosive play out of the 2 games that I watched, maybe 2, but I don't know aggregate numbers.
Let me see what I can get on him real quick when it comes. Let's see. This past season alone, Alex, if you had to guess, and you've obviously watched him more than I have. If you had to guess, I'm not going to hold you to it, so I know you ain't watched every play. But how many plays of 15 or more yards did he have on his 61 receptions?
I'll say 8.
He had 21.
He had 21.
21
wow.
gains.
Of the 61.
21 of 61 gains of 15 yards or more. Now, obviously, that's how many gains of 25 plus do you think he had?
Well, I was way low on the last one, so I'm afraid to be too low again. I'll say 7.
9.
Wow.
Now, let's look back at his 2018 splits on that. He had 34 receptions in 2018, almost half of them, 15 were 15 plus yards, and 8 of them, which is nearly a quarter, 25 yards or more. Maybe I should do I think I'm going to do Alex O or the Missouri tight end next, and then maybe I'll look at trying to find and contextualize as much as Bryson Hopkins as I can do. I guess my biggest fear, the initial look over of him that I did was more so how's this kid going to hold up as a blocker?
Right. But, I mean, that's a concern with basically all these tight ends, right? How many tight ends have you watched even on a surface level where you said that guy's a good blocker?
Not,
right.
not named George Kittle. I got spoiled there.
Sure. And the ones you will find are good blockers. Like I have a report today on Sean McKinney from Michigan. He's a good blocker, but as a receiver, he's a low ceiling kind of guy. He's not going to be any sort of vertical threat. So I can teach you to become a good blocker if you have the 1-2 and desire and the technique. We can work on that. And Hopkins has good size, a frame to kind of fill out a little bit. That's not a concern. But as a receiver, I can't teach you to be faster. I can't teach you to be more explosive, or at least only marginally I could help you with that. So give me a guy that's more of a moldable lump of clay in terms of receiver, and we'll work on the blocking as opposed to the other way around.
Initial thoughts on where, and obviously it's way early in this process there. I mean, are you thinking maybe 2nd round on this guy, early 3rd round? I mean, are we talking about possibly him being on the board still when the Steelers pick in the 2nd round?
My initial thought was somewhere around that top 50 range. Obviously, I want to watch more on him. I don't have a complete picture yet. I don't know exactly how the rest of the class is going to stack up with guys like Harrison Bryant. Does Thaddeus Moss even declare who's all going to be in the conversation? But yeah, my feeling was probably about that top 50 range. If the Steelers won, and they're probably going to have to take him with that 2nd round pick because I don't think he's going to be there by the time their pick 100-ish 3rd round comp pick rolls around.
You would put him ahead of Pinckney, though, and now that you've maybe looked a little bit more at Moss ahead of him?
Well, I need to watch more of Moss. I think as of right now, and this is still subject to change, but I would have Hopkins ahead of Pinckney because I think Hopkins is a more explosive player and a better receiver overall.
Okay, and I would agree with you just on the limited stuff that I've seen so far. And that in the Missouri, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the Missouri tight end and all like that as well too there. But yeah, those kind of guys. And make no mistake about it, it's going to hurt the Dayton kid a little bit being a small school kid.
Right. Well, if he does well at the Senior Bowl, that's going to answer those questions. That's why this week's so critical for him. But for Hopkins, I mean, for a lot of these Senior Bowl guys, kind of these last couple of days before I leave, I'm kind of just going one game with these guys and just kind of to get a reaction, just to get something down on paper. Yeah, get a feel on it. But Hopkins is one of those few guys where I watched that first game and went, man, I want to watch another. So I watched another last night before I went to bed. There's only been one or two guys I've watched so far where I went, wow, okay, this guy impressed. Maybe I'm just picking the right game, maybe picking the wrong game for other guys. Who knows? But that was one of those guys where I went, wow, this guy's impressive. I want to watch a little bit more about him before I leave.
And that's the important part about this process as well, too, that you and I both learned. I mean, you just can't watch the one game, or you just can't watch the highlight cut-ups or whatnot as well, too. And, look, I ran into this with Chris Jones, the defensive lineman with the Chiefs a few years ago, man. I thought I picked the three most prime games that I figured would get a good sense of the guy. And you want to talk about a guy missing on, I never saw it on him. Okay. And was it the games I chose? I don't know, but and that's why we always tell all of our the guys that write for us on the site that do the profiles, man, at least do 3 games. I mean, with today's day and age, and with like the VLC player and the hotkey buttons on YouTube, I don't know about you, but I can get myself through a game pretty quick now.
Unfortunately, it's becoming harder to find games. I think the internet's cracking down on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, and it keeps going back to what I said. Man, I sure wish we could get a subscription. What would a subscription service to an all 22 for all major college football be worth to guys like me and you? I mean,
a lot.
I mean,
NCAA, I think, proprietary. They're cautious to do that stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, they could get the money for it. You would think, I mean, the tape gets around sooner or later. Heck, I'm the same guy though that I thought by now everything. I thought by now a la carte on your television for any game that you wanted would be available. Of course, I thought growing up when I did, I thought we'd have flying cars like the Jetsons. By now, we don't. I'm fairly disappointed as a 51-year-old man at this point.
Well, I hope you find a tight end that makes you happy and brings you some joy. Is there any tight ends that you've looked at that we haven't talked about so far? I think we've hit on a lot of these names, but is there someone you've come across? I want to watch the kid from South Florida. I mentioned him the other day, and so that's going to be probably one of my next guys on my list.
Yeah, most of them just are coming off as big slots.
Yeah, that's how most tight ends in the college game are in the spread system. That's usually how it goes.
And I think is it the South Florida kid or the Florida Atlantic kid?
I think Harrison Bryant. I think is the H-back-ish, 6'3". Is that the kid you're talking about?
Yeah, but I mean he like split out wide quite a bit as well too. I think in the brief kind of. I tried to go through as many of these guys. The Washington tight end. What's his name? I think he's going to be at the Senior Bowl, isn't he?
I think so. I don't think I've gotten to him yet, though. I don't remember.
Yeah, he's kind of smallish, though. In my opinion, there, but just kind of underwhelmed at this point. And look, we think the Steelers are going to have interest in the tight end, but once again, I don't think we can sit here and say, all right, their second round picks definitely going to be a tight end. Especially with looking at this class and kind of circling back to look, we got Kevin Colbert coming up at the combine here pretty soon, and he generally I think does a fairly good job of being truthful with us and letting us know where the depth is and where the depth isn't in the class. And I fully expect him to say, man, this isn't a very deep kind of traditional tight end draft class. Now there are a lot of receivers, tight ends, big slot, want to be wide receivers, I think, in this draft class. But I wouldn't expect him to say there's a large selection of well-rounded, tight ends in this draft class.
Yeah, well, we'll keep looking at it again. I think the Senior Bowl will tell us a lot. Excited to watch these guys because several of these guys we're discussing right now will be down at Mobile, and that's a big opportunity for them to be as an inline tight end.
Who are a couple of guys now? You've gone through a few more days here of film and all like that. Who are a couple of guys that you can't wait to get down there and watch them? Obviously,
the tight ends or anyone?
Well, anybody, and obviously the kid out of Dayton's going to be one of them and all.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, let me pull up the list of tight ends here who are going to be there. Harrison Bryant from Florida Atlantic, Hopkins from Purdue, McCune from Michigan, Pinckney from Vanderbilt, Stephon Sullivan, who we talked about on Monday's show briefly, will be there. A great opportunity for him because he was, a bit piece in the Tigers' offense this year. Trotman from Dayton is going to be there. A couple other small school kids that we haven't really taken a look at yet. Kid from Portland State, a guy from Cincinnati. So those guys will be the ones to check out. Another guy that different position to touch on it briefly. That caught my attention on the defensive side of the football is safety, Ashton Davis from Cal. I just saw one game against Oregon, wanted to watch him against Justin Herbert, had an interception. I think a good athlete, takes good angles, physical, will support the run. Need to watch a lot more on him, but Ashton Davis from Cal was a guy that impressed me.
And I think you wrote up the Baylor wide receiver, right?
Yeah, Denzel Mims. I think we talked about him on Monday's show a little bit. Really impressive, above the rim type player, great hands, body control, high point in the football. Few guys do it as well as he does.
Yeah, that's another guy to watch. And I think our own Tom Mead, to give everybody a heads up, on Saturday, of course, the East-West Shrine game will take place this weekend along with the NFLPA All-Star Bowl as well, too. Tom's going to have a write-up Saturday morning about 6 to 8 guys I think Steeler fans should pay close attention to ahead of the East-West Shrine game. So I always make sure I'm in front of the TV for that one. I think they kind of conflict in times with that and the NFLPA Bowl, but usually it makes its way to the internet fairly quickly when it comes to that. Anybody else in the national championship game? Boy, that Burrow kid's something, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going to be a Bengal next year. Write that in stone now. 2020 draft, first overall pick is going to be Joe Burrow. So, yeah, it's going to be a crazy AFC North with Ben and Baker and Lamar and Joe Burrow. That is a heck of a four.
Anybody else kind of stick out to you in the national championship game?
I've always liked their offensive line, LSU's O-line. I don't know how many of those guys are eligible. I like their left guard, Adrian McGee, who's kind of a day 3 prospect, super physical, by too physical. I think he got called for unnecessary roughness at one point in that game, but he's played left tackle, he's played guard before. He kind of came in to that program immature, got in some trouble, then kind of got on the straight and narrow and kind of has a Zach Banner type feel, kind of a fun dude, prankster, but really physically imposing type player. So I need to watch more on him, obviously, but that might be a kind of day 3 target I have kicking around in my head.
What do you know about can their left tackle kick inside?
Was he the big guy? Or
I think he's a little bit undersized for left tackle, but I mean, I kept thinking to myself, man, that guy moves like he could maybe kick inside.
And he is a senior? He is draft eligible?
I don't know. Let me see if I can find his name real quick.
I know. While you do that, I know just for Friday show, I should say, we'll have a Senior Bowl preview, kind of going through this thing more in depth, position by position, than we are today. So just a heads up there. We'll talk about Senior Bowl, what to watch. We'll have a post for that on Monday morning when I'm already down there to let you know what's going on and get ready for the week.
Sadiq Charles.
Okay.
He is it says here on his bio, is a junior. LSU starter at left tackle in 8 games, named the Joe Moore Award winner, blah, blah, blah. I can't see where, let's see. It looks like he's mostly played left tackle. He's listed at 6'4", though. He's listed on his bio as 6'4", 295. He looks a little bit he looks like he's maybe 301, 302 or whatnot. He definitely looks every bit of 6'4". Might even be fudging just a tad on that. But I kept thinking about watching him throughout that game, thinking, man, this guy's an underclassman. Moves well out there. Not everybody can kick inside though. We know that. And I don't think he's got a lot of history of playing inside. Although it says during his freshman season, 7 at left tackle, had 9 starts on the offensive line his freshman season in 2017. 7 at left tackle, 1 at right tackle, and 1 at right guard.
Okay. Has he declared? I don't
look. I usually wait until that list comes out.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't look like there's been any report that he has declared yet. But if he does, we'll certainly take a look at it.
But he's the guy that caught my eye thinking. And also, I think the Clemson left guard, I tried to keep a little bit of an eye on.
John Simpson.
Yeah, John Simpson. He'll be down at Senior Bowl, won't he?
Big dude, just a massive man with a lot of power, but some work on his hand placement, his pass protection, that's a bit of an issue.
Right, and I want to see. There's not a lot of him pulling. I don't think, at least in the initial tape that I saw on him. Not a lot of stuff with him on the move. And running power stuff and all.
Yeah. All right, Dave. So again, we'll talk about the Senior Bowl more for Friday's show. Have a real big preview for that. I think that's about. Oh, okay. I know where we want to go here. Before we talk about the offensive line, speaking of which, we want to preview the offensive line. They run out the offense today for the Steelers. Their offseason preview, draft preview, free agency, all that stuff. Before we do that, though, Dave, let's talk about our buddies over at Goody's Original Popcorn.
Absolutely. In fact, I pulled up Dave's site right now, goodieslv.com. It's GOODYSLV.com. And what's hot right now in the button? He's got Pittsburgh Steelers 10s, 1 gallon up there now. Pre-sale on those. He's got those for listeners of the Terrible Podcast. I know him and I talked about something that might go over nice for Steelers fan. Go to his website and grab a look at these 1 gallon tins. I think you can get a full of whatever flavor that you want for $37.95. Let me tell you, you'll eat one. At least I will eat one of those in one sitting if given the opportunity. There, goodieslv.com, and delicious handcrafted popcorn, Goodies Original Popcorn, gluten-free, non-GMO seeds, 100% coconut oil, non-trans fat cheese. I don't know what all that means, Alex, but I think it means it's good for me. And boy, do I love me some popcorn. I've got me a $25 a week popcorn habit now, thanks to Dave and his fine popcorn at Goodies Original Popcorn there. Look at his menu here. We've gone over these flavors several times. Savory cheese, extra butter, cheese, spicy buffalo, which is one of my favorite, jalapeno cheddar, white cheddar, salt and vinegar, dill pickle. I'm going to try some of that salt and vinegar one of these times here. Another big thing that we're big on in this household, Alex, I'll probably mention it more than once, is we are black pepper people, man.
Mm-hmm.
We love or black pepper in this house, and I'm trying to get him to do trying to do a black pepper. I wonder how popular that would be with the masses if you had kind of like a black pepper popcorn there. But anyway, white cheddar, salt and vinegar, dill pickle, loaded baked potato, pizza, chili lime, kettle corn, churro. He's also got the candy coated ones. The Fruity Loops is fantastic. His caramel is the best caramel popcorn I have ever had. So make sure you get a bag of that. He's also got Sour Nerds flavor, and he's got a goodie mix of cheese and caramel as well too. For listeners of the Terrible Podcast, up in between now and the Super Bowl, and this of course goes back retroactive the last couple weeks. So if you've already ordered there, fear not. If you've ordered in the last couple weeks there, and you're going to be entered into this thing. He's giving away yet another full size Steelers helmet there to the winner, and obviously you'd have to order and use promo code HELMET between now and up until the Super Bowl, and then going to announce some winner right after that. So you're going to have a pretty good shot overall to win that Steelers helmet. And even if you don't win the helmet, you're going to win by ordering some of Dave's popcorn there at goodieslv.com. Good people, good small business here in Las Vegas, and we're proud to have him as a sponsor on the Terrible Podcast, and we would appreciate everybody supporting his business as well for doing so.
Absolutely thrilled to partner with and support a local small business in your area. All right, Dave, let's jump to the Steelers offensive line, their preview. I know we've talked about it a lot already, potential changes along this offensive line. It clearly begins with what is the future of Ramon Foster? Does he stay? Does he go? The cap savings you keep you create, I should say, by cutting Ramon Foster, and then what do you do to replace him if you cut Foster? So just kind of give me your 10,000-foot view on that left guard situation.
Yeah, it's going. We're going to learn real quick by the start of the new league year in the middle of March. Kind of what way this thing might ultimately play out here. Ramon Foster obviously being the biggest question mark, a guy that I think that both of us agree up until this year was Mr. Consistency, but Father Time's kind of undefeated undefeated. Looks like he caught up with Ramon Foster there. And when you consider the cap space that you can save with him, especially with Foster another year older on the wrong side of 30 there, it makes a lot of sense for them to part ways with Ramon Foster. Now the question becomes, what do they do with B.J. Finney, who's been the backup guard / center the last several years here now? Do they like him enough as an unrestricted free agent to get him signed up to basically what Foster's making, maybe a little bit more? Might even cost a little bit more to get a guy like B.J. Finney. And can he be your starting left guard for the next multiple seasons there? And I think the short answer to that question, at least judging by one game, I know it's hard to do that by looking at just the way they kind of treated B.J. Finney for that game against the Rams and Aaron Donald earlier in the season. I think that told us a lot right there. And because of that, I will find it a bit surprising if they retain B.J. Finney on a pretty decent-sized multi-year deal. Now, maybe B.J. Finney won't have the kind of market that maybe you and I or some people might think he might get on the free agent market. Maybe you get him back on a much cheaper deal. But I have a feeling a guy like Mike Munchak there in Denver and maybe a couple other teams across the NFL will look long and hard at B.J. Finney at both positions, either at guard or at center. And make no mistake about it, he can play both guard spots, and he can. We saw this year he did really his first multi-game test, I guess you would say, at center. Most of his starts had primarily been at the guard position, specifically left guard there. But I think I will be surprised as we sit here right now to see B.J. Finney re-signed at least before the start of the new league year. I expect him to test the market there. So let's assume they part ways with Foster. They let B.J. Finney walk out the door. Well, you've been kind of preaching this really since the end of the season ended there. The thing that would make the most sense when it comes to a new left guard would be to restricted tender Matt Filer at a second round level for the 1 year, and then kick him over to left guard for at least 1 year. That would give you an opportunity to go into the draft and draft either a center or a guard or as I like to say, both potentially there, because Pouncey's getting another year older as well. And look, if you lose Finney, I don't know what you think about J.C. Hassenauer being potentially the backup center next year. Really, it doesn't give you the warm fuzzy feeling, does it?
Right. Yeah. You'd have to address backup center if Finney's gone, and I think Finney will be gone regardless of what happens with Foster. Especially even if you cut Ramon Foster to re-sign Finney back to take up that cap space again, to basically give Foster's money to Finney, which just wouldn't be good for the locker room dynamic. Foster's a veteran, a leader, will like net room. I think that'd be a wise move for multiple reasons. I will say Foster's year, it wasn't, you saw a decline, especially towards the end, but it wasn't terrible. I only have him down for 2.5 sacks allowed this year, to not have a penalty against him the entire season. He's still a technical player, a big guy that did have his moments, so I don't want to pretend like it was an awful year, but in a season where your run game didn't really go much, and if there was a position to make a change, try to bring in someone that's a little more athletic, a little bit younger, fresher legs, that's certainly the position that you would do it of your starting five. So it wouldn't shock me in the least if he is ultimately cut, and if he is, and if assuming Finney's not retained as well, then I think kicking Fowler from right tackle to left guard is the logical decision.
Obviously, we don't have a lot of tape on Filer at left guard or at guard, period. All right, just pretty much preseason stuff at this point right now. How much of a drop-off, assuming that would be the move, Filer to left guard, how much of a drop-off would you consider from Foster this year to Filer, if any?
It's hard to say. I don't think there would be much. I think Filer's kind of a similarly built dude, a bigger dude, which is what Foster's called in cardboard, just a lot of size, can anchor against bull rushes, tough to get around if you want to try any finesse moves as a pass rusher. And he's a more athletic guy at this stage of his career. So given that Filer's bounced around and I think is pretty malleable in terms of he's had to play a lot of different spots, I think he would do just fine at left guard.
I do as well, but I don't think I'm ready to say I'm ready to go long-term with that.
Right. Well, that's what the tender will let you do. You tender him, like you said, you kind of see how the year plays out, and you can evaluate after this season, after 2020.
but you definitely would go into this draft needing a right guard / center, you would think, right?
Yeah, again, interior offensive line is going to be one of your bigger needs, absolutely, if that situation plays out.
All right, and as far as taking over for right tackle, we would expect that battle to be between Chukwuma Okorafor and Zach Banner. I would expect Banner to receive an original round low tender this offseason when it comes to them. And, of course, a guy like Chukwuma Okorafor hasn't dressed for many games so far during his career, but has two starts. Nothing we're going to ship off to Canton, Ohio in either one of those two starts, but a guy that, really, really young, coming out. And you would think his third season, boy, now he should be ready to compete for that right tackle spot. We would expect at least another season out of Alejandro Villanueva. Of course, David DeCastro at right guard and Marquise Pouncey at center. There would probably be another position or two potentially up for grabs on the depth chart, depending on how many they kept it all overall. But it sure would be nice to have Fred Johnson about this stage in the game right now. But that's no sense crying over that spilt Cincinnati milk at this point. But not an awful situation here, but I think the days of rolling out that same look. This is a team that's been very lucky to roll these same guys out year in and year out for the last several years. But sooner or later, it's going to come to an end. I think it comes to an end. I think we see two new starters at least on this offensive line next year. At different positions. Yeah.
In the sense, since of Filey moving and then Okorafor, Banner at right tackle. Yeah, and I will say with Okorafor as well, not only was he a guy that was young when he was drafted, he started playing football late in his life. I mean, I don't think he started playing football till like high school, because he was a guy that came over from the U.S. and played soccer growing up and never really even knew what football was. So he was late just to football in general, and was a young guy when he got drafted. So I think that's a good point too. Although I think 2019 could be characterized as a disappointment for Okorafor. Yeah. Had a really poor training camp, kind of got off to a bad start. Banner becomes a 6th offensive lineman. Okorafor only dresses in 3 games and starts the 1. I think that you don't have to give up on him, because he is a young guy, and you can really see some improvement going into year 3 for him.
Did you have any inkling when we got to that first game and Chukwuma Okorafor was inactive and Banner was active? You watched them all through camp. This was seemingly a big surprise to you even, wasn't it?
It was, but I will say that Okorafor did have a terrible camp, and I said as much as the process was going on. I thought going into camp there would be a real battle between Filey and Okorafor for that right tackle spot, and that battle really never materialized. And Filey didn't even play a lot of right tackle. Okorafor got every chance in camp and preseason to have an opportunity to compete for that job. It just never happened, and Filer kind of won that by default. So Filer played well himself throughout the summer. So that was a disappointment for Okorafor. So it was, I guess it was surprising, because I didn't know exactly how the dynamic was going to go. But looking back on it, Banner being such a huge guy and an asset, and as that 6th offensive lineman, it does make sense.
What are a few of the key things you like to see Okorafor improve in, moving forward into this next camp? And look, you got a 3rd round draft pick in this guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all he's dressed for is just a handful of games that started 2 so far, and once again, nothing really to write home about either one of those starts. You're hoping that this is the year for him.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I wrote about him in training camp, if I have had any specific criticisms of him. I remember, I'm just reading off my camp notes here. I said, specifically, his hand placement was poor, and he struggled to create power on his punch because of it. Chooks is a plus athlete. He gets to his spot quickly, but still working on getting stronger and playing with consistent technique. Very much a work in progress. I gave him a C- in training camp, which is one of the lower grades of the offensive line I gave out. So just getting stronger, working on his hands. He's a good athlete, and I think he still showed that, but just being more technical and being a stronger player were 2 things I think he had to work on coming out, and still 2 things he has to work on.
All right, and behind them, of course, J.C. Hassenhauer will be back competing, probably for a practice squad spot, the new Patrick Morris, if you will, which is the new Doug Legursky, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to characterize it much more than that. There's going to obviously be a nice, probably, crop of you got Derwin Gray, who really now at this point's less of a tackle and probably more of a guard. It'd be interesting to see him go through a second camp after he spent all those rookie season on the practice squad, I believe.
Yep.
With him, so it'll be interesting to see if indeed such a shift with him takes place, and if he offers the team anything there at either guard position, you know, you're going to definitely draft one interior lineman. Could you see them drafting? I mean, is there a sense of seventh round tackles? I mean, I guess there's a Kelvin Beachum out there somewhere.
Yeah, I think double dipping is possible. I think when you get in that late in the draft, 6th, 7th round, you're just trying to find talent, find guys that have the ability to compete for a roster spot. I think you focus less on positional needs. If you're drafting for need in the 7th round, you got some problems. You got a lot of needs or not a lot of draft capital. So I think you're just trying to find talent. So I think double dipping is possible. And I'm going to look it up now. I don't know what the history is. I know for receiver, we talked about on Monday's show, they drafted a receiver in every class, but two since 2004? I'm trying to see what the trend is with offensive line. I think it's maybe not to that degree, but it's a pretty heavy where they're drafting an offensive lineman in most classes, if I remember things correctly.
You're talking about every how often they draft one?
They 19 obviously with Gray, Chooks in 18. Did they take one in 2017? Does not look like it. In 2016, they did not take one. In 15, okay, so there was a drought for a couple of years where I think the line they got Finney as a UDFA in 15. But I wonder what the history there is with the offensive line. 2014, it took Wesley Johnson. I'd have to look at the whole history of it, but reinvesting in the offensive line, it's been a priority. They basically rebuilt this offensive line with high draft picks like DeCastro and Pouncey and Marcus Gilbert, who had a couple great years as a Steeler, and I think they got to get back to reinvesting in the offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely they are. I mean, moderately maybe this year, and most definitely heavily probably next year at the same time.
Because I wonder about Pouncey too. I mean, he's obviously coming back and he's playing well, but I kind of think that him and Ben are so tied to the hip, and I think 2021 is where you can see both those guys retire because they've always talked about it. They're gonna when one goes, the other one's gonna go too, and centers generally don't play that long. Once they get into the early to mid 30s, that's usually where career ends for centers, and so I think 2021 could be a final year for Marquise Pouncey.
Would you get, and someone had brought, and I only bring this up because I was asked this on Twitter. I know what way I would answer it, and I know what way you're going to answer it, but to satisfy whoever asked that question there, what would you say if the team drafted a drafted a center this year? Let's say in the second round, they got one of the top centers in the draft, whoever that person is. And I haven't even gotten that far to find out who that may or may not be. I know it's not the kid in Washington, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you don't like Nick Harris?
Yeah, a little bit undersized. It's not him, okay? Mm-hmm. There's a process of elimination for you right there. Okay. Let's say you did get one of the top centers in this year's draft class. Would you at all give any thought whatsoever to moving Pouncey to guard?
No, I wouldn't. I think he is where he is at this point. With Ben coming back, to have that continuity stays to stay in the same will be key for Ben, as opposed to a rookie trying to come in and do that. So, no, I really can't see a scenario where I would shift Pouncey.
Me either. And Ben wouldn't let it happen.
Yeah, I don't think that's not good for anybody at this point.
No, but I don't think. But we did get asked that. And I think we got asked that more than once.
Mm-hmm. I will say this will be interesting because this is going to be a real true test for Sean Surratt, for whoever they draft. Because Munchak has a lot of value in that room still for the guys that were with him. But for a new guy coming in, has no idea who Mike Munchak is, never been coached by Mike Munchak, none of that matters. So that's going to be a real test for Surratt and what he can do as a coach in terms of developing talent. Because obviously Munchak was known for that better than maybe any other offensive line coach in football. And Surratt's going to have to carry that torch.
All right, who is the top center?
I don't know. I can go to the one website I check out for prospects. I mean, Nick Harris will be at the Senior Bowl. Again, you want to find someone that's versatile that can play both guard and center. According to the site I use Draft Countdown, they got Tyler I can't pronounce the last name. Tyler B. from Wisconsin, we'll call him. Cesar Ruiz from Michigan. Matt Hennessy from Temple. Jake Hansen from Oregon. He's got Nick Harris 5th out of Washington. So, we'll learn about that in the process, just like the other positions.
What about guards at this point?
I know Simpson's going to be up there from Clemson, who's been impressive. A kid from Michigan that I watch, Ben Bredson.
I don't think he's all. I looked at. I think I was not as impressed.
I wasn't crazy about him. He's not bad, but I think the ceiling's a little limited. Shane Lemieux, I think Josh Carney did a report on him yesterday. I think he's got some versatility as well. He's an interesting guy. Will also be down there at the Senior Bowl. But yeah, Simpson maybe off the board by the time the Steelers could get around picking, but Lemieux might be a guy that you want to keep an eye on.
Yeah,
and also Lemieux in Pittsburgh would be
give him 66 though, can't
right. You? No, DeCastro and Lemieux have something to say about that.
You see that new kid the Penguins had on the ice last night?
It's pretty good.
Number 87.
Not bad. They got something with him.
Man, I guess the C on him means he's a tryout guy or he's cuttable or something like that. I don't know. They need to keep that kid around. He's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Boy, you're licking your chops to get down to Mobile already, aren't you?
Yeah, it'll be great because I didn't get to go last year. It's a lot of fun down there. It'll be fun to go with Daniel, meet up with him, and do a lot of cool work. So it's always a great week. And plus, I think it's going to be like 20 degrees in Pittsburgh next week, and so I'm glad to be far away from that kind of weather.
No bachelor parties, okay? No bachelor watcher parties. I want you to
My
stay.
fingers are crossed.
Don't get on Interstate 10 and go over to New Orleans, okay?
I think Mardi Gras happens almost the same week as the Senior Bowl.
Pretty damn close, ain't it?
Right, I think it's the week after, so no promises.
Mardi Gras really is traditionally I think the home is in Mobile.
Really.
Now New Orleans really more than adopted it and ran with it than that. But Mardi Gras is obviously very very recognized in Mobile and of course Pensacola where I'm from as well too. It's just New Orleans does everything. They add alcohol to it and then more than anybody else. But that usually happens right around the same time that you're down there, pretty close.
Yeah. Yep. All right, Dave. Anything else with the offensive line? I think it'll be interesting. I don't know exactly how this thing's going to go. I don't want to assume that Foster's going to be cut. I think that's certainly possible, but I don't want to pretend it's this slam dunk certainty. But if that's what it takes to help create cap space to keep a guy like Bud Dupree, clearly this team is going to keep, at least on the franchise tag, then that may be the move they have to make. So you're going to see new faces, though, I think, regardless. I think Finney's gone, and you're going to have to draft some talent.
Is there any low level? I saw somebody put a list of free agents out there yesterday, and everybody going stir crazy over that, thinking, I thought I saw Tyler Eifert's name come up by some people. For one thing, if you're talking about a potential Steelers target free agent, and if he's 29 to 30 years old, go ahead and cross him off your list. If he's had injury history like a guy like Eifert, go ahead and cross him off your list. It's not what the Steelers do.
Are you doing a Jeff Foxworthy kind of thing?
Oh, you mean you might be a redneck kind of thing? Yeah.
Bill Engvall, here's your sign. I don't know, one of those baller comedy tour things. Cross him off the list.
Yeah, I could probably go that round there.
If he's a 30-year-old offensive player that wasn't a former Steeler.
You might want to cross him off your list. Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
I'll see you with Larry the Cable Guy on your grand tour.
Let's see here. And who Bill, who was Bill, who's
Bill Engvall, he's the here's your sign.
Yeah, that's the here's your sign guy. Anybody on this free agent list, not named B.J. Finney, really, that you would look at and maybe come in and be a extremely cheap, maybe backup center / guard, or at least try to compete for a spot, because we know that we know that Kevin Colbert doesn't like to go into drafts with huge gaping holes. He'll at least try to put some of that Flex Seal on it.
Honestly, I have not looked at a list yet, and you got to stop watching the NFL Network commercials, Dave, because they're getting in your brain. I have not looked at a free agent. I mean, we're still 2 months away from free agency. I will have a list at some point, as I do every single year, but I have not even looked at the potential low-level free agent offensive lineman.
Would you believe A.Q. Shipley's 34 years old?
Yeah, he's still, kudos to him. Drafted by the Steelers, bounced around, did well in Indy, out there in Arizona now. Kudos to that guy.
He will be 34 in May. Where is the time gone, man? Seemed like yesterday he was a 7th-round draft pick of the Steelers. Man, Richie Incognito, 37. But you start getting down into this list, and you don't find many of those 25, 26-year-olds that the Steelers might have some interest here when it comes unrestricted. So, look, I mean, we'll know right out of the chute. We'll know by the middle of March what way they've gone with Ramon Foster and B.J. Finney, and that should clear up some stuff pretty good at that point.
I assume if they're going to cut Foster, they're going to do it relatively in advance. They're not going to do it at the last second, because they want to show respect to Foster if they do decide to cut him. So I mean, they're not going to do it tomorrow.
Right, and we talked about that not long ago about kind of the timing they did with William Gay and who was it? Monday, I think maybe was Ryan Monday part of that group. It's been so many years now, I forget who all was in that group and all like that. But yeah, I mean, a guy like Foster, I would hope that they wouldn't let the guy twist in the wind up until the final day.
Right. And he said as much. He said, if they're going to cut me, just cut me. Let me know. Let's not wait around for it.
Because look, I got to be honest with you. I think Ramon Foster there might be a team willing to pay him a little bit more than the minimum out there, but I think his biggest payday stands to be in Pittsburgh if he stays.
Right.
Anything less than that, then you have to wonder, man, is that guy going to really want to go over to another friend? It might be time for him is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but either way, I think any decision that gets made on Foster will happen sooner rather than later. All right, Dave. I think that's it for the offensive line. Again, we'll keep covering these prospects, talk about that a lot more. Free agency, we'll delve into that closer to when the time comes. So I think that's everything we had to talk about today, so we can jump into some reader emails and close out the show.
All right, how about Michael Wu's got a couple of good questions. Normally I don't like to read these longer ones, but I kind of peeked ahead and looked at his. He got some good ones here. He says, Alex, do you have anyone who is your George Kittle, i.e. someone you were really high on in the draft that the Steelers could have taken but ended up somewhere else and became a premier player?
I don't think I have that white whale that you have in George Kittle. I'd have to rack my brain of guys I really like the team missed on. I think about the things I missed on more than I think about the things that I got right. I will say I was really high on Jonathan Jones, the little DB out of Auburn years ago, who's really kind of filled out a niche role, but a good role with the Patriots. It's kind of a nickel corner.
Isn't he going to be a free agent? Isn't he due to be a free agent this offseason or no?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I thought did they not re-sign him to a long-term deal?
I don't remember.
I don't. You can look that up maybe while I try to rack my brain about some other names here. But I like Jonathan Jones coming out of Auburn a couple of years ago. I don't know. I mean, I like Kevin Byard. I talked to him at the Senior Bowl, and everyone was shocked he didn't get a combine invite. Had a great Senior Bowl week. Had a great career in college, and just seemingly overlooked time and time again. And I think no one that was down there at the Senior Bowl that week, that year that I was, is shocked by the success that Byard's having right now. But he's a guy that I knew he was probably working in the draft because he was a smaller school guy, but someone that you kind of just felt like was always overlooked in this process until he got the NFL and everyone knew who he was. Actually, what Deion Sanders didn't know who he was, thought he was some fan, I think, in the one tweet. I remember that. So it's been a long road for Kevin Byard, is my point. But the guys that watched him closely knew this guy was really talented.
Look, I remember looking at Byard's tape and all like that. Was Dick LeBeau still with the Steelers that heading into that draft or no?
That's a good question. I don't think.
I'm trying to remember
LeBeau. I think it was
what year was.
Because it was a Senior Bowl year, and I don't think I was ever going out to the Senior Bowl with LeBeau on the coaching staff.
Maybe he was with Tennessee at the time.
Yeah.
It was his first year in Tennessee, and I kept thinking
they drafted him.
right. I kept thinking, boy, there's no way that you just got the feeling that he would be a fit for the Steelers right from the get-go. But because of him being a small school guy, you kind of had your doubts. If the Steelers would go after him. And then I remember thinking, I bet that's a guy Dick LeBeau likes, and he ended up.
Byard had a great game against Alabama. Was the best player on the field that day, and you could see him against top competition. And again, just got no love by the NFL. Jonathan Jones, by the way, signed a 3-year extension in September, so he's long-term with the Patriots. Well deserved.
All right, Michael continues on. With all the Hall of Fame talk recently, I'm curious what role the team organization plays into someone's induction. For example, if Troy gets in but is still bitter about how the Steelers showed him the door, will that affect his induction or the ceremony, or if he doesn't want to work with them? Conversely, if AB gets in one day, which is certainly not guaranteed given his craziness and potential legal issues, do the Steelers have to support him through that process? In short, do players and teams have to kiss and make up to put on a ceremony, or is it largely just focused on the individual? I will tell you this. I thought Art Rooney in the interview with Stan Savran the other day on the radio did a great job of saying, look, at one point, him and his dad, of course, Dan, before he passed away, depending on who it was, they would write letters, or at least on this one instance they did. I forget who exactly. I think it was for Bettis they were talking about, and Bettis didn't get in. They said, "Well, the heck with that." That process didn't work. They worry about. I think Rooney made it clear the other day that they worry about bias. Okay, when it comes to Steelers, especially back, the 70s players and guys like that. And I think it's hard not to worry about bias even at this point with newer players, just because of how many damn former Steelers are in the Hall of Fame at this point here now. But I think they've got to be real careful of how they campaign, as much. Look, you obviously get the info out there, and the Steelers do that via post on their website, social media stuff, and all like that. But I think you can take it a little bit too far when it comes to campaigning. I bet a lot of these voters just don't want to hear it. They want to figure it out themselves or whatnot. Now, as far as the role that goes into the actual someone's induction, how much the team plays a role in that, I don't have a clue. Michael, that might be a perfect question, and Lord knows he doesn't get enough good ones for Bob Labriola's mailbag on Steelers.com. I bet he'd have a little bit better answer for that, than we would. I just don't know the role. And look, if Troy does, I think they would be willing to help out whatever player and whatever help they need, to as much as the player wants to help.
Right.
So if God forbid, one thing that was really encouraging about this whole recent Head and Shoulders ad with Troy Polamalu was he was wearing a Steelers pin on his lapel.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I don't know how much we should read into that, but I read a lot into that. Okay. Now I have talked to, of course, his brother-in-law over the years and all like that. There is some animosity the way things were handled there in Troy's final years, but I don't think it would be a noticeable, or at least I hope it wouldn't be a noticeable riff here should Troy get the call here from the Hall in the next couple of weeks here. Time heals all wounds, I think. And yeah, did the Steelers kind of do him dirty? Probably, yeah. But then they want to protect his legacy in the same point as well, too, I think. Okay. But I think you help the player as much as the player wants to help.
Yeah, that's well said. And obviously the team would love to help in any way possible. Well, let me ask you this. Do you know what happened with Bradshaw and how the team worked with him? Because obviously that's a player that didn't leave on great terms with the organization, still not on great terms with the organization. Do you remember back to his induction about anything in terms of how the team aided him and all that stuff?
No, because, look, we didn't have the internet back then. I obviously lived in a different state and, didn't have the talk radio access that I have now. And obviously, most of what I read now is archive stuff. I'll spend a couple, during the off season, a couple of days a week just going through news. You want a great place to spend some money on subscription other than SteelersDepot.com for $25 for one calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site. Is go to newspapers.com and get you a subscription to that, because boy, it makes it going back through old newspaper archives absolutely easy and fantastic, and you'll go down that wormhole and you'll stay down there for a full day if you let yourself there. But no, to answer your question, I don't have a good recollection of how all that went down.
I would be curious to look back and see how that was handled. I will say it's not like baseball where you go in as a member of a team. In the NFL, you don't go in as a member as a team. You just go in as the player. So you don't have to have that relationship if you don't want to, the way that it might be different in baseball where the player chooses a team that'll be part of his induction ceremony. And the other thing I would say is that I lost my train of thought, so I don't know what else I was going to say here.
About Bradshaw or
also, the other thing I was going to say was talking about the influence. Yeah, you're right. I don't know how much pull the team has, but I just saw a tweet today that actually Ed Bouchette will not be doing the case making for players this year. You think he's having surgery? He's not going to be available. Don't know who's replacing him. So normally Ed Bouchette is kind of the representative for the team that pushes the Steelers players. It doesn't appear he's going to be in that role this year. So what effect that will have, I don't know, but I do want to point that out.
Yeah, and look, these guys are supposed to, because of the home paper, they're not supposed to be as biased, but they're supposed to make a good, because they followed the player. They're supposed to make, you know,
Make the case. Yeah.
make the case,
Right.
and some will say that hasn't been done very well the last
Yeah,
time.
I'm not saying it was. I'm not saying it's a negative or a positive. I just want to point that out because I think most people know that Ed has been the representative, kind of quote unquote, for the Steelers, but it doesn't appear he's going to be in that role this year. Just want to point that out.
And we don't know how it goes on in that room, you know.
No, well, we get some snippets of footage of them making the case. I would like to see the energy be a little bit higher to make the case, but that's whatever. Put that aside. But I just wanted to at least point that out.
I'd be up on the walls, man. I would
Right.
be literally climb. I'd be sticking iPads in their faces. Look at this. Look.
What's the movie where the eyeballs get taped open? He's got to watch that. He'd be doing that thing.
Watch it, say it. He's going Sam Kinison on him a little bit. Boy, what a great comic that was.
On too soon. Too many good comedians.
Yeah. Let's finish up with what Michael Wu has to say regarding Dupree. I know you guys prefer sticking to analysis and predicting what the Steelers will do, but do you think it's the right decision to retain Dupree? It seems that to retain him, you'd have to hurt a lot of other positions, backup safety, inside linebacker depth, finding a decent tight end, starting Chooks at right tackle instead of Finney at left guard, retaining RFAs, et cetera, et cetera. I know Dupree played very well last season, but it seems concerning to invest so much in one player when you could use that money to shore up many different positions. What do you guys think would be which do you guys think would be the better team? Look, all this stems from what he put on tape this past season. Okay, I think it starts and ends right there. You got to tag him. Okay. Now, whether or not you wanna do a long-term deal with him, I think that might be up for discussion there. Okay, but especially with Watt coming down the pike, and maybe you can draft another edge, or I don't know what you think about these other younger edges at this point. It's hard to think a lot about a Daney and Skipper right now because they just don't have the tape on him right now. But at the very least, I think you absolutely, especially the whole makeup of this defense and all, I think you absolutely have to tag Dupree, and then then we can have discussions about whether or not it's right to get him signed to a long-term deal, yada yada. But I am on board now with him at least being tagged.
Yeah, and I'm all for a long-term deal. Obviously, you want to structure it the right way in case you are wrong on that, but I want to keep this defense intact as much as possible. I don't want to have this defense that you spent so much time and patience investing in, and then it finally gets to the point it was in 2019, and then you start losing those pieces immediately, where Hargrave's gone, Dupree's gone, and then you're trying to replace those pieces, and then you're losing more pieces in the process. Like, you want to keep that group intact because you know how good that defense can be, and with Ben returning, that could be your ticket. That is your clear and obvious path to a Super Bowl victory, or at least an appearance. So my mission is to keep this defense as intact as possible. I think the cuts you have to make to potentially do that aren't going to dramatically change your team the way that they could dramatically change your team if you were to lose Bud Dupree without any really in-house options to replace him, and then have to scramble into the unknown and hope you find someone talented in free agency or more likely the draft. So, I'd be all for re-signing Dupree.
All right, number 4. I know you've said signing Watt to an extension this offseason could be cheaper in the long term, but given Ben's status, doesn't it make sense to keep Watt cheap the next 2 years so you can invest that money elsewhere for one last run at it? Even if Watt is more expensive after that, Ben would probably be out the book, so you'd have a lot more cap flexibility. Sure, no, you're not going to catch me saying I bet my house that Watt's going to get a new deal this offseason. In fact, I'd probably bet the odds being that he won't get a new deal this offseason. I can see that more so just because, the way the Steelers do business normally, and you got the 5th-year option hanging out there, and that's the whole reason you draft guys and try to keep them in the fold and draft and develop is because you get the cheap year or two in there of a very good player there that you can build around. Will Watt like it? Probably, maybe not. But at least one more season because, look, by some sometime right at the draft or right after the draft, they'll obviously pick up the fifth-year option on Watt this offseason, that commitment there. And then what will happen is he'll go in, assuming it goes the way I think it's probably going to go, he won't get an extension this offseason. He'll have to play, for that that kind of minuscule rookie contract there. Be heck of a bargain for the Steelers. But then obviously you go into a year from now, we're talking about Watt entering his fifth-year option year, and then sometime between the start of the new league year until the start of the regular 2021 season, he will have a new deal in place that'll probably make him the highest paid player in, on the defensive side of football in the league, if not close to it.
Yeah, I'd be fine if they didn't do a deal. I wouldn't be mad about it. I think that point is well taken, Michael. So we'll see what happens. If it does happen, it won't happen until late in the summer, probably right before training camp is my guess. There's benefits to doing it now. There's benefits to waiting. I think either way is just fine.
Yeah, and you could look at I mean, yeah, the meter's running, but the cap is expected to increase in other words, you could say it's all kind of relative.
Yeah, you could say let's wait till after this year, see how the CBA looks. That'll help maybe give us a better framework. I mean, again, a lot of reasons to do it now, a lot of reasons to wait. I'm fine either way.
Looks like
Watt is less fine. Probably he would like to do it now, but that's the only reason to do it now because I'm sure he's pushing. Let's do a long-term deal.
Looks like Janae Harley writes in, boy, pretty detailed question there about the salary cap and the 30% numbers, and he's got a lot of scenarios laid out here, trying to do a mock kind of off-season for the. I'll tell you right now, Janae, I hope I'm saying your name right. I think you're wrong on a couple of your 30% restructures here. Looks like you got right at the right numbers here, potentially with Ben saving, and I don't have my sheet in front of me, $3.192 million on a restructure with Ben and $1.149 with Tuitt. You have DeCastro down at $2.8 million. I don't recall, but I think you're probably high there. Maybe you're forgetting some of his previous restructure number there, and it's hard to use over the cap at this time with their restructure feature because they don't have the 30% rule in the math there when it comes to those little drop down menus. At least they didn't last time I looked at over there. He's got the team franchising Bud Dupree, tendering Filer and Hilton at second round level, Banner at original round level. Yeah, I've already written about that as well too. He's got him re-signing Cameron Canaday at a vet minimum. Here's something that he's got that's kind of interesting as far as his cuts go. He obviously has him cutting Chicolo and Barron. I'm looking to see if he's got them doing anything with Foster here. I don't see him having anything cutting Foster. He might want to add that to it there. He's also got him not picking up the McDonald fifth-year option. He has him cutting McCullers, Switzer, and Ryan Shazier. All right. I understand what you're trying to do there. You're trying to get the quarters out from underneath the seat, the couch cushion there. All right. And look, we've already talked about Shazier. We don't even know specifically yet for sure if his contract's going to toll. We think it does, but even if it does toll and he gets shipped off to reserve to PUP reserve on a split salary, what are you really saving there? Okay, Switzer, yeah. Why 600 something thousand I think salary on the books. You're gonna keep him because you just don't save enough to cut him, at this point, versus roster displacement. And really the same goes for McCullers. Look, I've tried to cut McCullers the last however many off seasons there. You turn around and there he is. I'm not saying he sticks on the 53 this year. I definitely don't think Switzer sticks on the 53 this year, but you gotta have guys, some experienced guys there in camp, just in case the injury crops up, and a guy to help the other guys learn on top of it. And McCullers and Switzer are those two kind of guys there. So if they had larger cap numbers, that'd be one thing, but they don't. So you don't really save a lot of money there. But I mean, just on the surface here, looking at this email, I think he got a pretty good overview here overall what's going on with the Steelers cap situation. I'll be writing more about it probably over the weekend sometime. Hope to have that post ready by Monday.
All right, good stuff there. I don't have a whole lot to add. Even if you do cut Switzer, you're saving so few money. It doesn't even matter at that point. It barely moves the needle. So if it does happen, the savings you get are almost negligible.
All right, Brett Nile writes in, if someone signs a new contract this year like Dupree, does that limit the structure? The example, if it's $18 million a year average value, then usually do a signing bonus and low first salary to reduce the cap hit that first year. Would the 30% rule mean that the first year salary can only be 30% less than year two? If I'm right on that, then if the annual salary is 18 million a year, then you could reduce it to 12 million or so. Then you could only reduce the salary cap hit the first year about 4. I think you got the general preface there, Brett. But look, here's the thing you got to remember. Whatever, take out the signing bonus, because signing bonus does not count as far as whatever the year-by-year value is when you're talking about the 30% rule here. So take the base salary. I don't know if you're going to give them a roster bonus in that first year or not. Whatever those amounts equal to there in base salary, let's say roster bonus or any other outside of signing bonus portion there, the next year's amount can only be 30% more than that. The next year's amount can only be 30% more than that, and clicking up from there. So yeah, that makes it a bit challenging this year to give a guy an extremely high signing bonus as part of the first year cash flow in order to potentially keep his, let's say, in the case of Dupree, his 2020 cap hit, lower, because you still got to adhere by that 30% rule in the second year, and of course keep the cash flow amount up as well too. So not only are you battling the 30% rule in these contracts, let's say for Hayward or a guy like Dupree, not only are you battling the traditional cash flow issues, but you're battling the 30% rule as well too. So yeah, let's say you tag Dupree and you got a long-term deal with him. It's not like you're probably going to save a huge amount of cap space by getting that long-term deal with him done. And really same goes with Cameron Hayward. I haven't drawn all that out yet, but that's just the general preference people should, much like Joe Hayden, this last season.
Yeah, I know that's all in your wheelhouse. So I don't have a whole lot to add there, to be honest with you.
He says, is there any limit to contracts that teams can give in that uncapped year? Well, you can't you can't give a contract in uncapped. In other words, I'm guessing he's saying after the season can, if there's no CBA, there's no CBA, and there's probably going to be a lockout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can't play without a CBA.
Right. I mean, it's hard to imagine anything getting done after this year without a CBA in place. Okay. So go back and reread that stuff, Brett, on the 30% rule there, and I think maybe it'll help clear you up a little bit better. Some people, and I've seen one site do this, and it's a no. They say, well, the 30% rule applies to the cap hit increase. No, that's not how it works. The 30% rule is to each year's take minus whatever the salary, whatever the signing bonus is, including. I know it gets confusing, but you got to read that stuff like 8 times, and then you'll finally get it. Chris Warren writes in on Canton. Hey guys, I bought my ticket to the enshrinement ceremony last week, and I'm ecstatic about being there to celebrate with potentially thousands of Steeler fans. If either of you happen to make it, would you consider having a casual meet and greet for Steeler Depot fans? Your podcasts have done so much to enhance my experience as a Steeler fan, education, and entertainment, and it would be cool to say hello in person. Anyway, keep up the great work. Alex, you plan on going to the enshrinement?
I'm not sure. I'm really thinking about it. I'm just trying to think how it's going to balance that with work and training camp and all those things that'll be happening around the same time. So I don't know if logistically I'll be able to do it, but it'd be a lot of fun to go to. And if we do something, yeah, I'll definitely let people know that I'll be there and meet up with a lot of fans. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know if health and somebody's got to man the man the mothership, if you will. But health and all like that, I would love to go And if I did go, I'm sure there'd be people that they instead of a meet and greet, they want to meet and punch Dave in the face.
No, they want to see you. The people want to see you. David Baker's gonna put you in the hall
Yeah.
as a contributor.
Yeah, in the hall closet.
I didn't say what hall. Yeah, hall closet maybe.
So look, I mean, I think it'd be awesome to go. I'm not a huge fan of crowds anyway. Let's see here.
By the way, I saw Drew Pearson's reaction. He's crushed by not getting inducted today. I think he really honestly, and this is from a Steelers fan.
Right.
Drew Pearson deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Where did you see his reaction at? Just
on Twitter. Yeah, there's a camera crew there that was filming it because apparently he didn't know. Because I guess the guys that get the call they knew ahead of time, but the guys that didn't get the call they're watching Good Morning Football and they strung that thing out the entire show, so they don't know who's gotten the call and who hasn't gotten the call. So he had to wait like the rest of us. Didn't get the call, and he said it quote broke his heart, and I feel for that guy.
And once again, it goes back to the way we kind of started his show. When when's it going to be the next good time for a guy like him to get in?
All right. I guess the upside is it kind of maybe for next year's because there's always a senior class that gets inducted every single year. So maybe this year kind of clears the way for those guys that didn't get this year to get in next year potentially.
Yeah, but you could build a list of 20 of them.
Oh, I know. Yeah. For sure. But I'm just a little bit of optimism. But yeah. Feel bad for Drew Pearson.
I mean, where do you draw the line at?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you draw the line?
Well, I think that wherever you draw the line, I think Drew Pearson needs to be on the inside of that line. He's a Hall of Famer in my book.
All right, Matthew W. Kent writes in, as we head into the draft and scouting season, should the Steelers look to the 49ers in terms of their running game? Breida, Coleman, and Mostert each saw similar amount of touches. If the Steelers had a system like that, it seems like it could help preserve Connor. Thanks for all you do, scouting and reports in the offseason. You know what they need to do? They need to be able to run the ball better, whatever that means. I think we could potentially see more of a committee approach potentially next season. But with that, we talked about already about, man, is Benny Snell the kind of guy that you need to get in there and getting as much workload right from the beginning of the game on as you can. Connor, when he's been healthy, he's been fine. For the most part. But even overall, if you go back and look at all the Steelers running backs, even going back to the last year that Le'Veon Bell actually suited up and played, the successful run rates have slowly decreased. And this year they really decreased. They've got to figure out a way, and don't hammer the old 8-man box BS, because Henry's had to run up against a bunch of 8-man boxes, right? Mm-hmm. You got to scheme it up, man. And you got to scheme it up without an extra tackle playing tight end kind of thing as well too. So that should be one of me in a running game. You don't have to run a lot, but when you do run, you damn sure better run good, and they're just not running good right now. So they're gonna have to find a way to scheme this thing up. They should have a defense that should predicate them being able to spend a little bit more time and in more situations be able to run the football, and hopefully you get into some of those late in the game situations where you do have the lead, touchdown lead, and you can take the air out of the football some. But I don't care how they do it, Matt, committee or whatever, they got to find a way to get this running game going back in the opposite direction.
They do, but the important question is, how do you do that? How do you scheme it better? How do you make this run game more effective? I don't know if I'd be so hyper-focused on the 49ers to say this is the approach you have to take, but the overall reaction I have to that is I think this running back group needs some speed, and obviously you have some of that in Kareth White, but Coleman, Breida, Mostert are all really fast, open field type of backs, and in Pittsburgh you have a lot of power types where you're the opposite, and with an offensive line that may not be opening up big holes and big runways for those power backs to get a full head of steam, that may hurt them. So you may want to find a more speed guy, someone that can create more outside the structure of the blocking scheme to be able to create some bigger explosive plays. Obviously Connor's capable of creating big plays. We saw that whenever he's healthy, but you would like to have that different style of running back. This team is very hyper-focused on having guys, White being the exception, that are 225 pounds plus. And I think having a different type of back in that room and have somewhat more emphasis on speed and big playability would be useful not only in the run game, but in the short pass game as well.
Yeah, and, even though you and I not thinking that they're going to go running back early, there's always a potential of that happening,
Mm-hmm.
Look, I think this is a deep running back class though. So if you
It
did
is.
want to grab one, you know, third or fourth round, that ability's there. They need to spend some picks on the offensive side of football. Period. They could use another defensive tackle. They could use a strong safety type. But outside of that, I mean, they could use an edge. But what are you going to get what are you going to get in the way of an edge? Uh, Third or fourth round in this draft? Probably not much, right?
It just depends. I haven't looked at the class deeply enough yet. I will say running back, 'cause I mentioned his name a couple weeks ago. I mentioned again Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin. He kind of hits all the boxes. Big guy, ton of production at Wisconsin, Power 5 type player, leaving a year early, I believe. So that's a name that I would keep in mind if you're looking for a running back for the Steelers.
Yeah, to me, if you're going to get one, you better get one early.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And for the record, I'm not saying that they should take Jonathan Taylor. I'm just saying knowing their type. Again, I would like to try to look at a different type of back, but just given their track record, I think Taylor's going to be high on their radar.
All right, we'll see. I mean, we would expect them to treat their second round pick or selection this year a little bit similar to the way they treat their first round pick. They'll just have to probably do a little bit more visiting, whatnot. I mean, we still expect them to make the pro day rounds and all like that, right?
Yeah, even in past studies like last year, there are a lot of similarities between the first round traits and the second round traits and what they look for. I'll have to go back and review some of that stuff, but there weren't huge differences. Again, Power 5, last, I think, second round pick that was non Power 5 was Coakley in 2004, same year as the first round with Ben. I'll have to look at all the data, but there's a lot of similarities between what they do in the first round and what they do in the second round.
Absolutely, and we'll be tracking it every step of the way. All right, what else do you have for us?
That's everything for Friday. We'll have our Senior Bowl preview, kind of really go through this thing position by position, give an overview what to look for the week in Mobile, Alabama, and whatever else comes up. We'll turn that into a 2-hour show, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll preview the championship games this weekend. Talk a little bit obviously about the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine game just a little bit as well too. And all right, that sounds good then. Until Friday, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do, now's the time to let us know and go to SteelersDepot.com and hit that PayPal button up right navigational bar. Obviously, too, if you want to get an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, please go to the site and hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar. Got a lot. Boy, these guys are pouring out this draft content already. I've already got my first contextualization up for the year. I hope to have another one maybe up by this afternoon as well. Just a lot of good stuff going on the site. We got a big board up now too. That's been, if you haven't checked that out, make sure you go to SteelersDepot.com. Look for Scott Pavel's big board. That's been hugely popular since it went up a couple of days ago as well. And as Alex said, he and I will be back on Friday. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.